All right. Good evening and welcome to the July 15th Township of Bedminster Township Committee meeting. Let's see. We have a full quorum. Everyone is present and accounted for. Ms. Sullivan, may we please have the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was sent to the Kirby News in Somerville and the Burnsville News in Whippany, also to all subscribers, and then posted here at the Municipal Building as of January 7th, 2019.
Great, thank you. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Has everyone had the chance to run through the 2 minutes, both the July 1 regular Township Committee meeting and the July 1st executive session meeting minutes? If there are any comments or changes that have not otherwise been provided to Ms. Sullivan, may we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Permits
I
are out.
wasn't here, don't forget.
You
You were
weren't there,
abstaining.
but you made it today.
I did.
287 notwithstanding. We have 2 permits and raffles for tonight. The first one is raffle license for Children's Specialized Hospital, event held at Fiddler's Elbow Country Club on August 12, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. It's an on-premise merchandise. The second is raffle license for Children's Specialized Hospital, event held at Fiddler's Elbow Country Club on August 12, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. That's an on-premise 50/50. Any questions or comments? Maybe a motion to approve those permits and raffles?
So moved.
Second. Again, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Twice each night, we open the microphone and the lectern up here for public comments. Does any member have any comments or any other comments they'd like to say? And we have one member of the public. No comments. Okay, we will move on to monthly report discussion by subcommittee chair. We will start with Mr. Stevenson on the right.
Good evening, Mayor. I have no updates from the last meeting other than what I'll update you in exec session.
Okay. Mr. Hickey.
Mayor, good evening all. Just a couple quick updates. Rec Committee, we're going to have our third quarter meeting later this month. Board of Health, we have a meeting this Thursday, July 18th. We have several septic applications pending. And our IT subcommittee met last Monday, July 8th. And as usual, our primary focus is on the ongoing work for securing and protecting our IT infrastructure. And that's all right now.
Great.
Thank you.
Mr. Hickey. Ms. Santucci.
Good evening, Mayor. Judy and I are meeting with the representative from AT&T on Wednesday afternoon to talk about Fall Fest and what's going to go on there. And also, our next Fall Fest meeting is July 23rd. That's really all the updates at this time.
Ms. Moreski.
I have nothing at this time, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Since it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention the farmer's market, straight from the get-go. So it was an interesting weekend. We actually had Pottersville Fire Company at the farmer's market, and it was really interesting because we have a lot of folks who are unfamiliar with the Pottersville section of town, and certainly unfamiliar with the antique show and the dinner that the Pottersville Fire Department hosts every year, which is coming up in a week and a half. And it was a tremendous opportunity to really promote the antique show and the dinner. And we also helped them promote a couple raffles that they were doing. So, Judy, I'm not sure if we did get a
I reached
tally.
out to the chief and deputy chief. I did not get a response, but I did see Tom Anderson today, who said he wasn't at the farmer's market, but he heard from the guys that it was awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't know what awesome means.
So hopefully they raised a good amount of funds for the fire company up there.
And they're changing the format a little bit this year, I think. So if you go onto their website, you can see they're changing it up a little bit. It's not 3 whole.
It's not 3 whole days of the antique show, but it still is the same. So
Yeah, there's a
ham,
turkey and
ham on Thursday,
With the preview.
ham on Thursday, And then on Friday and Saturday, you have the antique show, and on Friday night, it is roast beef, and on Saturday, it is turkey. And peaches. And they will start peeling the peaches in a few days. So that was a great showing by Pottersville at the Farmers Market. I do have a couple of meetings coming up regarding shared court over the next week or so, and by the time we have our next meeting, we'll be reporting on that. Ms. Sullivan, we have the administrator's report.
Most of my comments tonight are on holding for the executive session. However, just a reminder, we do have that meeting with the court tomorrow morning at 8:30. Mr. Stevenson, you're listed. I don't know if you can attend.
Yes,
Mayor?
I can attend.
So,
8:30.
8:30 here.
My depth's off, so I can
And then, like I said, Stacy and I have a meeting with AT&T on Wednesday afternoon. We did have a bit of a mishap over the weekend with the sewer utility. I'm just going to ask John to give us a quick summary. I know the mayor's been updated.
So approximately 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, I got a phone call from Scott Hanna, which is our sewer operator from PPAC List, indicating that when the gentleman from the EDC was here to check their meters, they noticed that the tank was overflowing. And I guess PPAC had not come to check the plant. They usually do their normal checks in the morning. I don't know what their schedule is, but that employee from PPAC did not get here yet. Scott reached out to Tom Skillman. Tom then in turn, I guess, was communicating with the PPAC employee, kind of indicating what he should be doing in the short term if he gets here before he does. He had things coming, tankers, so forth and so on. So he did. So then we communicated a little bit, and by the time I got, probably 45 minutes later, Tom had everything under control. The plant was flowing. So what had happened is there was an electrical failure in the pump panel itself that tells the effluent pumps to kick on so that the flow goes. And apparently the same device is also the same device that sends a signal to the command center to tell it's got high flow, which they would have gotten notified about at that point in time. So it was an electrical failure of a component within there. When Tom got here, all they did was they hand turned on the pumps, pumps kicked on, and at that point in time, we started to resolve the issue at that point. So it was an electrical failure that caused it. Don't know why, but it's being looked at this point in time. As I think the mayor knows, and Doug may or may not know, we've had meetings with PPAC List before when we had this report done a year and a half, 2 years ago, and they indicated at that point in time that the plant is somewhat obsolete to some of its controls, and those controls need to be upgraded to more efficient controls. And we're going to look at that. So hopefully in the next month we'll have some discussions amongst ourselves so that we can then gain control of the plant ourselves.
So it sounds like the same control panel that would have handled the activation of the pumps also handled the alarm and monitor. So when that when that control device goes
Correct.
down, not only are you not getting the pumping, but you're not getting the alarm notifying, indicating that the pumps are at capacity.
Which seems to be not a good fail-safe at this point in time.
Right.
So
And that is part of recommendations that were made, and I'm sure we'll be taking a harder look at that as we move forward. So how much overflow is it hard to gauge?
It's hard to determine because we're not sure exactly when it was. I mean, they kind of determined, based on what the pinwheel said on the meter was as sometime on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? I mean, and then, the tank fills up, and at what point did it start to flow over? I don't know if anybody really knows, and how many gallons we actually lost. So I did indicate to them to put a report together for DEP. Just put it in. It should not be anything more than, we had an electrical issue.
From visual evidence, it
No.
relatively contained?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, it goes, There's stone around the entire facility for the most part, except for one area that was blacktopped in and around where the main portion of the pump station is. And it actually was flowing out to a manhole, so they opened up the manhole and it was flowing right back into a manhole, so it's good to go.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, John. It sounds like once everyone was noticed by the EDC reps that all the actions that were necessary to take were taken.
Good line of communication, so.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good. Ms. Sullivan, anything further on
That's
administrators?
all I have.
Okay. Well, we do have a couple of ordinances. We'll skip to the introduction of ordinance number 2019-010, which is an ordinance amending section 4-1 entitled Soliciting, Canvassing, and Peddling of Chapter 4 entitled General Licensing of the Revised General Ordinance of the Township of Bedminster. And this ordinance amends the township's regulations and license requirements for the soliciting, canvassing, and peddling in the township. So if we have a motion, if we do introduce the ordinance, the public hearing will be on August 19th.
I put the 19th simply because normally our next meeting is the 5th, but I thought there might be more discussion than we normally have with the capital ordinance, so I made it for 2 meetings. You can
Okay.
change that if you like.
Okay. So first, let's do we want to have a discussion about the genesis of these revisions? Or do you want to, Joe, should we introduce first and then have that discussion?
Well, it could make sense to talk about it first so everyone knows what they are voting on. Chief and I have been working on this ordinance. It was really came about because there's been an increase in applications for solicitation permits in the township, and it's not just the township, New Jersey in general, and a lot of municipalities have been getting an increase in these type of permits. One company in particular, Active Environmental, they were applying in all municipalities. Their whole marketing program is to get out and knock on doors. And they have a law firm out of Texas who is monitoring these things and has contacted, I don't know exactly how many, but I would guess almost all the municipalities that they're going to be working in, because I know they've contacted almost every municipality in Somerset, Union County, Morris County, and they're doing so, trying to find any loopholes in the existing ordinances governing these type of permits. These are tricky type of permits because they do trigger First Amendment rights. They do. There's a lot of protections offered for what can be licensed and what is as of right when you talked about freedom of speech and canvassing for political purposes or so forth. So it's something that we had in the township had drafted quite a number of years ago. I know only because I was involved even back then in putting together the original ordinance. But since that time, a lot has changed. So now with the influx of new permits, the chief and I took another look at the ordinance and realized it really was a little out of date. It was good when it was adopted, when it was, I guess it was over 10 years ago. Might be closer to 15 years ago when it was originally adopted, but a lot's changed since then. So we went through it. We went through with regard to the recent updates in the law. We took into account the objections that the Texas firm had made, but we might not have agreed all the time on what they think is reasonable. We went through what we believed is reasonable, what has been done in other municipalities as well. So we went through, and it was really more of an update. One of the major updates in it relates to the criminal background checks. This really, at least in Somerset County, is very recent because there's a state law out there that says municipalities have to accept, for solicitation permits, have to accept background checks from other that might have been done in other municipalities within 6 months if there was no issues that came up on that. But the caveat is, it says it only has to do so if the county prosecutor issues an order declaring it. And our prosecutor just recently issued such an order in February this past year. So that statute never really applied to the township until just recently. So that was one of the major items. And there's other things we just updated and kept trying to keep it consistent throughout the ordinance. made sure it was a little clearer since we had a chance to go through this, clarify some of the exceptions, clarify some of the reviews. And then the last major item we added is the no solicitation list. At some point, I know, being involved with it, and originally when it was being drafted, there was at least contemplation of including that. In fact, there was language on that was still currently existing in our ordinance that recognizes a no solicitation list, but at some point, and I don't know exactly what happened, it did not end up being put in place, enacted in the township. So after speaking with the chief, we thought it would be a good idea to reinstate that, because if people really don't want to be solicited, to be able to be placed on that list, and then when someone comes in with the permit, they're given a list of addresses that are on that list that they have to not abide by not soliciting on those properties for commercial purposes. And so with regard to that, just to please note on page 5, under a section that was D, now being labeled E, permit requirements, there is a deletion found under paragraph 2. That deletion really should be taking off that slip through, because when we added the no solicitation list back in, that should remain in the ordinance. So if the committee does adopt this ordinance tonight, this should not be taken out and will be corrected on the version that will be finally adopted and published. But that section there, it's a double strike through, that should just be left alone and remain if we do move forward with adding the no solicitation list.
Joe, how does it work with some of the communities in the hills where the homeowners associations have adopted anti-solicitation rules? Does this trump that, or how does it?
Their own rules apply separately. This wouldn't really. They could put their address on there, but their own regulations about not soliciting within there will apply first. But this at least will be recognized with the township, so they don't have to register. But if they did, they'd have extra protection, because now their specific address will be listed on our no solicitation list that will be given to each individual group.
And when they would get a permit, then would the town let them know that they wouldn't be able to solicit in those places?
Yeah, we'd actually give them a list that the township, the police will maintain. Oh, I'm sorry.
The communities that Colin's talking about, so
Right.
that they don't go there unaware and say, wait a second, I have the permit, and those people aren't on the list.
Well, that's the whole Hills Village master on my side. I'm not sure about North, but we have signs at the front and the back of the development.
Okay.
No solicitation.
Right. I just want to make sure that, those communities get on the list that we maintain, so that it's a complete list.
Yeah, that's something we could work with the actual community itself and add the community to the list as a whole.
Say, well, we didn't know, the town didn't tell us.
As long, yeah, we'd need something from, the governing organization for that committee, or for that community, excuse me, so that we just have something in writing that says we want to be on the list. We don't want to just add them assuming they
So
want
is
to be
that
on the
something I could reach out to
To-
the various neighborhood associations and ask them for their latest and greatest information? I mean,
You might
it's still on.
want to start with the masters.
Right.
I was
So
gonna say,
start with
I would start with the master.
Yeah, start with the 3 masters, and if the 3 masters deal with it, then that covers all 21?
Yeah, and then we can just add them to that list as,
Both,
the
yeah.
community and.
And Timberbrook as well.
So this would apply to political solicitations?
No,
No.
no, this is for commercial. The
It says on your no solicitation list,
I'm sorry, I thought you meant the permitting.
no, it's the purpose of this section is to provide relief to the township residents who do not wish to be solicited, hawked, inquisitioned, generally disturbed by commercial solicitation, canvassing and peddlers, and charitable and political solicitation. So if I'm going to be out there later this year, or somebody else sitting in this chair in the future is walking, beating the streets, we now have to take that list and figure out who we can't talk to.
It says charitable, so would it have to be like
It says, and political solicitation.
And political.
But you did carve out an exceptions on page 6.
Right, no, I mean, that is the way, you're right, the way for the no solicitation, when you said that, I was thinking the permit, I apologize. For the no solicitation list, the way it's currently drafted would apply to that. We could take that out if the committee would rather not include charitable and political solicitations for that list, to allow for that type of solicitation, because and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with taking that out. That's just the way it was, we put it in there for the original draft. But there's no legal reason why we have to include charitable and political solicitation in the no solicitation list.
So that would cover like Girl Scout cookies, stuff like that,
Mhm.
for charity. Okay.
So if we wanted to take that out, we could do so.
Well, I was just
You
thinking
know what-
beyond, the selfish of, I know this is something I'm going to be going through, but in the years to come, and then you've got county folks, you've got state folks, do they all know that they're going to have to come to these townships and get lists of people who don't want to be bothered? I mean, this seems to be, if this is the movement for municipalities, this is something that all of us need to be very much aware of.
Well, not all municipalities have the no solicitation list, and not all, some that do don't restrict the charitable and political as well. That would be taken off as an exception.
Can you actually regulate the political discussion?
Well, with regard to the no solicitation list, that is a voluntarily act of an individual saying, I don't want someone to come.
Correct.
So then,
But if you're, and I guess maybe I have two questions. So one is the enforceability of being on a no solicitation list. And can it be enforceable with regard to political speech?
currently, yes. To say that might not change. If, certain cases out there, there hasn't been a specific challenge to that. But there have been no solicitation lists that have been upheld that do address political, but that specific issue wasn't the issue in those cases. So it's more of a dicta situation in the ruling. So now that's why I caveat by saying right now, yes, but that is something that if it ever got challenged, I don't know. I don't know where the courts would come out on that given today's political canvas.
So what I'm going to suggest is that we keep the public hearing for the ordinance on the 19th, but that we push the introduction of the ordinance to the first meeting in August so that all the TC members have an opportunity to run through this. Sure. And also, Joe and Judy, if you could also reach out, I'd just be curious to see if the league has a model ordinance or if they've issued any opinion with regard to political or charitable speech as well. So that does mean that there will be homework for all the TC members to read and get comments back to Joe, and if someone wants to be the point person for delivering comments back to Joe, Ms. Santucci?
Yeah, Joe, would you prefer that we can certainly send our comments over to...
But I think rather than coming in from 5, so this way in your role, you probably have a little more experience with this issue than the rest of us, so I would suggest...
And then I'll forward it to you.
Absolutely.
Do
Great.
we have a time frame that you're thinking of?
Well, to get comments back to Joe so that we can introduce in August, so presuming there's comments that do go back to Joe, he might need a week or so, I would imagine. So
Yeah, I can turn it around as quickly as necessary.
so let's figure, just go
Perfect.
reverse from, see, the August 5th meeting. So maybe by the end of the month, get comments to Ms. Santucci, and then Ms. Santucci will...
And if I do see anything on the league regarding specifically that, I will circulate that information as
Great.
well.
Okay.
Can I just,
You're interested also in enforcement and consequences. What is,
Right.
is it a violation of
Right.
the ordinance? Is it something more?
And if it's a violation of the ordinance, is the
Is the jurisdiction?
right, is that jurisdictional under our general enforceability of a violation of an ordinance, right? So there's punitive measures that are there. Or do we have a separate scale of, if this, if someone is soliciting without the permit or they're soliciting in violation of the permit, what can we do? So just curious to see.
On that issue, as we currently have it drafted, it does fall under the general terms. The only additional under this ordinance would be if there's a permit involved, you could be barred from getting a permit in the future for a number of years. But aside from that, it refers to the general penalties under, the section 1-5 for our ordinance violations.
So maybe if you could also just email that general ordinance so everyone knows you know, what's at stake with that one provision.
Mayor, can I just jump in real? One other question. Joe, was the intention on the no solicitation list to be more encompassing than the applicability of the ordinance? What I mean by that is your ordinance sets all rules, and then it has exceptions for those that are not governed by the ordinance, and then separate apart, there's this no solicitation list. So I happened to see, and Ms. Sullivan had indicated, you know, Girl Scouts. I see that they're accepted under new sub 8. But if I'm a resident and I put myself on the no solicitation list, does the Girl Scout get jammed up for going to that house, even though that conduct is not prohibited under the ordinance?
Well, they're two different things.
Right.
What that exception is that they don't have to obtain a permit. So the Girl Scouts can go, in your example, the Girl Scouts can go out without going to the township a permit and just go door to door and start selling Girl Scout cookies. With the no solicitation list, that's different. That's saying, well, we don't, if kept how it currently is, we don't want anyone to come knock on my door. I don't want anyone to come knock, even the Girl Scouts. You know, so I'm going to put my name on this list so even the Girl Scouts, no one can come knock on my door. And that is where the difference is. But that's why, I kept it as all-encompassing, but we can whittle that down to be where it is even just the commercial. So then it's still two separate items, but then at least you have only the commercial being permitted. So anyone else can go out without getting a permit and going through the permit process. But the no solicitation will only apply to the commercial. So you have a permit, but even if you have a permit, you still can't go to the people on this list. That's another way we could do it if we took out the political and charitable provision under the no solicitation list.
Thank you.
Which you can do.
Thank you.
It's not legally required to put on there.
Okay, thanks.
Because the Girl Scouts, if they don't have to get a permit, they're not going to know.
Well, that's my concern.
There's no list.
That's my concern. You know, last thing you want is someone then trying to jam up, poor little member of the Girl Scouts or a poor little political wannabe and get you in trouble, so.
And that also goes for the charity will also cover religious institutions as well. So, there's been a number of religious organizations that go through town and knock on doors, and I think we have to just take a little harder look to see, look, we're going to either regulate everything,
right,
or you start, selecting.
Absolutely.
It's got to be very, very careful. So I think let's all take a look. End of month, comments to Ms. Santucci, and then Ms. Santucci will communicate directly with Joe. And Chief, from your perspective, you and Joe have already gone through this, so you've already addressed your concerns?
Correct. And with the no solicitation, as was brought up before, that it was in the original ordinance, and then, there was never a list created by the police department. So I think it's a good idea because it's like it's confusing because if you go to the hills and if you walk in one of the entrances, it says no solicitation, well, you shouldn't go there. But the list, if you cut in between, residences, not the main entrances, well, then you're not put on notice. So I think the list for commercial purposes is a smart thing to do. It'd be listed by roadway and what numbers are included. I don't know, and I think you leave it up instead of the whole, I don't know how the Masters Association rules work, but I think you leave it up to the individual resident rather than the top, And then the other thing with the original ordinance didn't encompass is, I was the annual sale, so if I disproved your application, you had no recourse. And now the new one gives them an opportunity to appeal my decision on the deadline.
And what were the issues that were being heard by that Texas law firm? What were they? Was something specific in our ordinance or our process that they were objecting to?
One was the background checks. That's the big thing they're really harping on in most towns because all towns are requiring background checks, and their big claim is, well, my client is doing this in every town, and I have to pay and obtain a background check for each of my employees in every town, 500 plus municipalities, to run business, just inhibitive. And so that's what one of their claims, but there was a provision, like I said, that recently got enacted by the action of our county prosecutor, which now opens that up and corrects the issue, which me and John Bellato both separately have spoken to the attorneys, advised them what we're doing, advised them we're updating, and we've actually already implement that, even though the ordinance hasn't changed, since it is the law of the land, and accepted for background check purposes, such results from other municipalities. But the other thing is, like the chief said, like for the appeal process, that's something that was brought up, but not really harped on strongly by the firm, but it was the fact that, well, you guys don't have an appellate process there outlined in the ordinance, and then they were trying to talk about the fees, but our fees are actually very reasonable. So, you know, some of the stuff we pushed back on, and but other stuff, they weren't wrong that we really continue to take another look at it, because it was, 10, 15 years since we last adopted it.
Now, is there an application pending for this organization?
Yes.
It's approved.
Under the old ordinance.
Okay.
And, one of the other points that was brought up was the application clearly says, and even in the original ordinance, that we can take up to 90 days to process your application. And they made a point.
Yeah, that they thought, given the nature of their business, that seemed a little, long. So we took another look at that. That's one that might not have necessarily been a legal argument, but it was a reasonable argument, so we took a look at it.
Another point, the original was restricted, so if you are issued a permit, it's only good for 30 days. So now, but the application asks you how long you want the permit, so it kind of, it makes sense.
Okay. All right. So we will revisit this at our next meeting. Public hearing of ordinances. We have one, which is ordinance 2019-009. The ordinance authorizes appropriating $37,000 for various equipment for the police department in Bedminster Township. And we have a motion to start the public hearing.
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Chief?
Oh, this is just money that was already approved in the capital budget for 3 pieces of equipment. One is the mobile video camera upgrade to 3-year pricing spec, and so hopefully with the 3 years we can put enough money into that item to purchase scale and cameras for the cars. The other is the new NIPERS rollout for the software for criminal statistic keeping, and the third is the speed signs. And that totals right around 30,000.
And on the speed signs, do you have the speed signs? Do you know what you want? Do you know what version? Are they recordable, not recordable?
Trying to work within the price range, trying to get the most bang for the dollar, and, still haven't zeroed in on specific vendor.
And how many are we looking for?
The price point, hopefully we can get to.
Okay. Any further questions from the Township Committee?
Do we know where we're thinking we're putting these speed signs? Have we identified locations?
Originally, we spoke about the Black River Road being that. That's my opinion. You put one southbound, you don't match it going northbound. And then, if that's effective, it's needed to possibly improve on it if the signs are reliable. We do something, down toward the more populated areas such as parks.
Okay.
Thanks.
They're portable signs, so they'll move from post to post to post.
Oh, great.
It's not a permanent fixture.
It just gets affixed to a telephone pole or something else along those
And
lines?
they're solar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they can be moved around.
That's great. Thanks, Chief.
Okay, let's open it up to the public. So does the public have any questions regarding ordinance 2019-009? Seeing no comments from the public, maybe a motion to close the public hearing. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, can we have a motion to move forward with ordinance 2019-009 for approval?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye. Okay, thank you. We have nothing on the consent agenda, but we do have 5 resolutions tonight. So let's quickly run through the resolutions. First resolution is Resolution 2019-080, resolution appointing an alternate public defender for the shared court in 2019. Sullivan?
We haven't had an alternate public defender for as long as I can remember. The chief reminded me we had one long ago. Recently, there was a case in PPAC, there was a case here in Bedminster where there were multiple defendants in the same case, where they requested a public defender. When they came before the judge, our regular public defender is able to represent one defendant, but can't represent both defendants in a case. So the judge had to make a decision. So the judge has public defenders that she works with in other towns, so she suggested the particular public defender that she mentioned. We did reach out to the RFP, through the RFP process that we did last fall, to our number 2, and they were not able to do it at this time. So we went with the recommendation from Judge House. Mr. Fasanella is currently the public defender, I believe, in Dunellen and Raritan Borough. So I told him what the current rate was for our public defender. He said he'd be happy to do it for the same number. And he will represent those 2 co-defendants, one in the Bedminster case, one in the PPAC case. The good news is there is a trust fund that's kept when you are assigned a public defender. It's not free. You pay a fee. You do pay a fee, and that fee goes into the public defender trust fund, and that can be used for this additional cost. So
Okay,
that's where we go.
great. And this same resolution will go to the other members of the shared court?
Yes, it's been shared. PPAC is doing something similar because it impacts them right away. Burnsville's been notified. And then going forward, when we do our RFP in November, we will just make this part of our process and always have an alternate, just in case.
Okay. So if there's no further questions for Ms. Sullivan, may we have a motion to approve 2019-080?
I'll make that motion. Judy, can we just a little clean up the second paragraph, public defender? It says Perlick.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries, just figured we'd clean it up
Yeah.
as we
Okay.
adopt it.
I will take care of that.
Thank you.
Oh, the alternate Perlick.
Alternate
I didn't
Perlick,
see
yes.
that on the first one, right? Good catch, Colin.
Once in a while.
Next resolution is
Wait, wait,
20...
wait.
Second.
Whoa,
We need a
what?
second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
This is a roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci? Aye. Ms. Moransky?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye. We'll go to 2019-081. This resolution stating that the governing body Township of Bedminster has reviewed at a minimum the general comments and recommendations of the registered municipal accountant on the annual audit for 2018. Ms. Sullivan, please
We
just
did
give a
talk
brief
about
summary
this
of
at
this
our-
routine
yeah, we
resolution.
talked about this at our last meeting. You were given copies of the audit. The last page of the audit gives you recommendations from the auditor. This affidavit is stating that you've read it, and this is, normal procedure every year when we get the audit. Any recommendations, they have to be, now, not to say you can't read the whole audit if you wish to, but you have to read at least the recommendations page from the auditor. So the affidavit, I think, is actually up on the dais somewhere going down, so that has to be signed by everyone. And the actual comments should be actually in your packet as well. I think they were copied separately as well.
Renee, I think we need your signature on this.
Okay.
May we have a motion to adopt Resolution 2019-081?
So moved.
I'll second.
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Santucci. Aye. Ms. Moransky.
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs.
Aye. Resolution 2019-082, this resolution approves the corrective action plan submitted by the Chief Financial Officer for 2019.
You should also have a copy of that up on the dais for you. It is similar to, if you remember, last year we went into this in depth with our auditor. We asked for a full report of the reasons for the comments and what could we do to correct those comments, and he gave us a very detailed explanation that the Township Committee at that time decided that they weren't going to take those actions. So as a result, the comment remains, and it is still there again this year.
Great. So any questions or comments, or further questions or comments regarding that resolution? Seeing none, may we have a motion to approve 2019-082?
So moved.
I'll second.
And this is, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Resolution 2019-083. This resolution authorizes and approves the amended shared services agreement with the Borough of Forest Hills for the provision of tax collector office services. Ms. Sullivan?
Well, very good that Mr. Sordillo is here this evening as the attorney for the Borough of Forest Hills. He assisted me in putting this agreement together. As you may know, but we will be discussing it further in executive session, but this is certainly public, that our current certified tax collector is leaving us as of August 1st. She is not retiring from her municipal position. She is leaving Bedminster, and she will continue in another town doing something not full-time. She is still a certified tax collector even though she is leaving Bedminster. We share our tax collector with the Borough of Forest Hills. We are required by law to always have a certified tax collector on staff. The deputy tax collector, who will be taking over, she is completing one more class and should be taking her final exam in December this year. Assuming that all goes well and she passes everything fine, and she has passed all classes above 95% so far, she will then be made the new certified tax collector come January. But in the meantime, we still need to have someone who is certified, so our current tax collector has agreed to stay on. And you'll see this in another resolution coming at you, that she will remain as an as-needed part-time hourly employee to assist, if needed, as certified tax collector. Okay. And then we needed to revise our agreement with the Borough of Forest Hills that covers that office, and also put that we will currently have a deputy tax collector acting in that position as well. So Joe was kind enough to help me work on this. It's a little odd, a little different, not something you get all the time. So thank you, Joe. Any detailed questions, please ask it.
I think I actually followed that.
So seeing no detailed questions for Mr. Sordillo, may we have a motion to adopt resolution number 2019-083? Motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
We need a second. Or not. We don't have to move on it.
Can I second my own motion?
Okay.
Ms. Santucci has seconded the motion.
Okay, so this will be a roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moransky?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Borough of Forest Hills thanks you too. They'll be doing this similarly at their next meeting as well.
Yes.
Okay, the next resolution is Resolution 2019-087. This resolution extends the grace period for payment of the third quarter tax installment. Ms. Sullivan?
So although our budget was passed long ago, way within all the date requirements, that's not the same with the county, because the county is waiting for the state. And the state, I have no idea when that's finalized and coming to us. But once it is all completed, then we'll move forward with actually printing the tax, setting the county rate and printing our tax bills. So we have to extend our grace period for tax bills at this time. So this is an estimate. Hopefully, we do not have to do it again. But
Is there any, well, I guess I have a couple questions. So is this something that we're seeing all towns,
everybody in Somerset County is...
everyone who is waiting on state approval? Well,
I think
the tax
that
bill.
the county has to wait until they get everything from the state. So even if all the towns in Somerset County have submitted all their stuff and they're all done, the county can't set the tax rate for the county until the state approves
Right.
everything at their level.
Are any other counties in the same position?
I would think it's the state budget that's holding everything up, so I think.
Yeah, I don't know offhand if all the counties are not, or if any of the counties have been approved. I don't know, but
But so the counties, I'm sorry, the municipalities that you're handling in Somerset are all?
yes, they were all the same, because, yeah, we can't issue the bill until the county
sets the
rate is set.
Sets the county rate.
Does this affect any problems for bidding?
Right now, we're okay, but,
For grant funding or?
yeah. Well, the state budget not being approved impacts our grant funding for our road projects. Now, we did defer, we're doing our planning and engineering, and we're not awarding, starting the next project, which is for River Road West, until the spring. But if we were going to be doing it this fall, we wouldn't have the funding.
Any anticipation of how long it takes from now that we have state approval to go to the county and then back to us? We're talking days, weeks?
Once the county gets the rate, we're just waiting on the county to say, okay, we have the state numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a similar situation in Monmouth County. It wasn't available last week and suddenly popped up today with a final tax bill. So I think all the counties have been experiencing something like this.
Okay.
So once the bill is available, what is the period in which people are expected to pay it? Are we giving them a month or are we giving them?
The,
Let's see, but it's not available yet. I see it's August 16th in here, but that's,
so normally it's August 1
right.
with a grace period until August 10th. Now it's going to, be extended to another half a month. So,
So we
and
do
then
it-
it's 10 days grace period past then, so.
But depending upon what happens with the state and the county,
We
we
may
may have to
Yeah.
extend this.
Right,
So your point that if we're anticipating that if the information hasn't cleared through the county yet, that
Yeah.
we might as well push this out?
I'm just curious in terms of what kind of buffer do you want to put in there
Or put, rather than a date certain,
X number of
amount
weeks
days
after,
after the,
right, I mean,
Yeah, it's best to have an actual date in the
Okay.
resolution, because, the phones have been lighting up.
Sure.
Where's my bill, where's my bill, I don't see it.
Well,
if
We're-
it changes, then we'll
Then
have
we're gonna
to.
have to come back.
so we have 2 meetings, certainly leading up to August 16th.
right.
So, I think for now, keep it with that date
The
in.
tax collector has been in direct communication with the county tax board, and as soon as we know this, we're ready to print the bill.
I'm sorry, I'm wrong. We only have 1 meeting. We only have the August 5th meeting. We
Okay.
don't,
Right.
so we have 1 meeting, so by August 5,
If
we
things
should have
aren't
that.
doing something, we may want to amend this to a different concern.
Okay. Let's keep it for the 16th. And let's see when all the information comes in and the mailers go out.
Okay.
And what would be standard? The standard is how long from when the mailers go
It's
out?
usually a 10-day grace period after the due date,
Okay.
so that would still stand.
All right. May we have a motion
And if
to
10
approve
ends on a Sunday, then it's the following
carried
Monday.
over, right, to Resolution 2019-087.
So
I'll second.
All in favor, please?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, may we have a motion to approve the bill list pending review of individual invoices?
So we'll make that motion?
Second?
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Dickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye. Discussion items. Any items that Township Committee members want to put up for discussion? Seeing none. New business. Any matters for new business? Old business. Short-term rentals. Judy, do we have any update?
In your reports, there was a recent letter from the zoning officer, but not really regarding short-term rentals per se. I don't have any other.
Okay. Engine braking, I think we've covered that in past meetings. We'll probably table that unless there's any new developments. Pluckman Park. Joe, are you aware of the discussions that Mr. Bilardo has had with the prosecutor on bringing him up to speed on the Pluffin Park violations?
No, I am not, I
I
apologize.
know there was a meeting, Prosecutor Winder met with construction and spoke with Mr. Bilardo, I think, and he said he's ready to proceed. I'm not aware of the date, I meant to check it, but I don't have the date of, it is, someone just had an issue, there is a court date.
Okay.
Um,
So we will update this.
Yeah, the
in-
repairs are, some of them have been made, some of them have not. So I don't know what the status will be when it comes to court.
Okay. Well, we'll keep that on the agenda and bring this up on August 5. JCP&L, Colin, you want to give us a quick update?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I've been in touch with Ms. Bianchi, who is our representative. We have set up a date for August 7th at 7 p.m. in the clubhouse on Artillery Park Road to meet with the folks that have been most impacted by the outages, those in Four Oaks, in Wood Duck Pond, and the surrounding area. These are going to be set up as quarterly meetings, so the residents will have an opportunity to sit down with Ms. Bianchi, report what they've been observing. She'll be providing some updates. Those will not replace, obviously getting updates here, but we thought it best to have a sub-team there on a regular basis so that, we can deal with things as they rise. The good news is things have been happening and more things are happening. I just saw a report today that there was some landscaping done around some of the most recently replaced electrical switches and transformers. And there was also a report that there, knock on wood, have been no outages over the course of the last several months. So things are looking good and going in the right direction. So we'll keep on that. So that's
Great.
it. And anybody is obviously welcome to that meeting on August 7th as well, if they want to add comments or have questions or whatever they need.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So this is the second opportunity for public comment. So again, the microphones are open. Seeing none, we will move on to Township Committee comments. And just a quick reminder, we do have an executive session. We will be moving into executive session. We will be returning from executive session. And when we do return, we will be considering a number of resolutions. With that, Township Committee comments, Mr. Stevenson.
No comments, Your Honor. Or Mayor?
Mr.
The Honorable Mayor?
Honor sounds pretty good.
That does. Do I have to say that
He's
too?
prepping for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Larry did not
flinch.
flinch.
The Honorable Larry.
The Honorable Larry Lawrence
Lawrence
Jacobs.
something Jacobs.
Not so.
I have no comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Santucci.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Moreski?
No comment.
And I have no comments. May we have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will return. Jake, you're supposed to be golfing.
Yeah, I thought you were getting them around the links, Jake.
You interrupted golfing.
Okay. No, what it is that Jake's so good, it only took him 52 strokes.
I hit him, Jake.
Okay, we're back.
Thank you.
Yes.
We are back from executive session. It is 9:22, and we do have 3 resolutions to consider before we end this night. So the first resolution is Resolution 2019-084. This resolution amends the tax collector, sewer collector, tax search officer position. Are there any questions for Ms. Sullivan that have not otherwise been addressed? No? May we have a motion to approve, a motion to approve Resolution 2019-084.
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Next, Resolution 2019-085. This resolution is to appoint a new tax assessor, assistant, due to a promotion. Any questions for Ms. Sullivan that have not otherwise been addressed? Seeing none, may we have a motion to approve Resolution 2019-085?
So moved.
Second.
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
And the last resolution of the night is Resolution 2019-086. This resolution is to appoint a new finance clerk due to a change in work status. Any questions for Ms. Sullivan that have not otherwise been addressed?
No.
No. May we have a motion to approve Resolution 2019-086?
So moved.
Second?
Again, roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
There are no further resolutions. There's no further items on tonight's agenda. May we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Absolutely, anytime, Joe.
Good to see you, my man.
You know, they always have a nice, long executive session every time I come, I've noticed.
Just for you.
I'll send them to you first thing. What time do I need to get them to you? Like,
Larry, I'll see you here at 8:30.
I sleep in, so
6?
I'm on banker's hours.
God, I love
Get that in by 11.
I love the way that's down. Hey Doug, before you go though, let's look at your schedule.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, but
Oh, I'm
Judy
so
has a
happy.
meeting after that.
Oh.